Not yet.
I'm attempting my hand at some maple syrup collection with our two maple trees in our backyard, but the weather has been crazy for knowing when to actually do that. So
Yeah,
it's my first attempt, but I'm kind of excited about it.
bet. We're good to go, Alicia.
Yep, we're good to go whenever you are ready.
Alrighty then. It is 1 o'clock. Welcome everyone to our public planning meeting here on February 28th. I'll call the meeting to order. This is a public meeting concerning proposed zoning bylaw amendments pursuant to Section 34 of the Planning Act. We have three files to deal with today. First is the Township of Southgate Cemetery lands. The second is Edward and Mary Etchison. And the third is JFAB Manufacturing Incorporated. Any person or public body is entitled to attend the public meeting and make written or oral submissions in support of or in opposition to any of the proposed zoning bylaw amendments. Written comments should be submitted to the clerk, Lindsay Green. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Southgate before the zoning bylaw is passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of Council Township of Southgate to the Ontario Land Tribunal, and in addition, they may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to do so. Okay, so the first file this morning is C19-23 and OPA 2-23 Township of Southgate Cemetery lands. The purpose of the proposed county official plan amendment would be redesignate approximately 0.87 hectares, which is 2.15 acres for those of us that work in acres, of land from rural to primary settlement area, while the township official plan would redesignate the same area from rural to neighborhood area. The purpose of the zoning bylaw amendment is to rezone approximately 2.29 hectares, 5.67 acres, of the subject lands to match the existing zone regulations to the north, which were finalized through a minister's zoning order. The retained lands, which include the existing cemetery use, will remain unchanged. The effect of this proposal will be to expand the settlement area of Dundalk by 0.87 hectares. The township aims to undertake a land swap such that the subject lands will eventually be added to the lands to the north, which were rezoned through a minister's zoning order for the development of a residential subdivision. The zoning change would alter the zoning from community facility, which facilitates the existing cemetery use, to residential exception, which would facilitate residential development subject to further site-specific approval. The location of the subject lands are part of Lot 229, Concession 3, southwest of the Toronto-Sydenham Road, Proton, being Part 1, Reference Plan 16R8057, Township of Southgate, County of Grey, also known as 180199 Grey Road 9. Can I have confirmation from Grey County Planner Becky Hillier that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act?
Yes, I can confirm that on January 26th, all neighbors within 120 meters of the subject property were notified by mail. As well, all of the Planning Act agents were notified by email on that same date, and a development sign indicating the time and location of the public meeting were also erected on the property.
Excellent. Thank you, Becky. I'll now ask our planning consultant, Bill White, to review correspondence received from commenting agencies. Bill, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. The comments that I know of being received on the township website include the historic Saugeen Métis, and they had no concerns. The Saugeen and Ojibwe Nation has raised the issue of possibility for future archaeological assessment on the property. The Public Works Department identified the fact that the wellhead protection area D just touches the area in question. I believe that's the least restrictive area of the wellhead protection zones. Enbridge Gas had no comments or concerns, although they reserve the right for future comment. And the Conservation Authority did not offer any comments or concerns on the proposal at this time. We did have internal conversations with them because there is a portion of hazard land on this property. And we did verify that they did not, it's not a regulated area, so they did not have concerns with the application. Those are the only comments I know of, although there may be some others that have come in subsequent.
Okay. So you're not aware of any written comments from the public?
I am not, although I was hearing that there may be some comments coming forward. I did not see any.
I'll ask the clerk if she has received any written comments from the public. Lindsay.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Milne. We do have one written comment that I received the other day. I'm not sure, Alicia, if it's online. I imagine it is.
It is.
So it's included online with the file. And if I'd rather not read it out, just because then I don't want it to be from my perspective, but we can share it on the screen if council wishes, but it is online for reference.
It is online. Yes, it is, with all the other materials. Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Are there any questions or discussion from council at this time? Monica.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Chair. So this is just through you, Chair, to whoever could answer, just to the point of the comments from the public, and just wanted to ask the question with regards to the respect for the cemetery, that there be an emphasis of the importance of respecting the cemetery's integrity and the sentiments of the community members that may have questions about the lot area. So my question would be, is this land unused? Is there anything in this land that we are, as being severed, being used, and just wanted to have that clarity?
Okay. Thank you for the question. Bill, do you want to go first?
I'm not aware that the land is used. I believe it may be farmed. I don't think it, as far as my understanding, is used as part of the cemetery.
Okay, thanks, Bill. Jim, maybe do you want? Yeah, go ahead, Jim, please.
Good afternoon, good people. There currently is a stockpile of topsoil and some materials that have been dug out over time with the interments that are on that parcel, but they could be moved. But other than that, there's no activity as far as plotting it out.
Barb. Thank you, Jim.
Good. Thank you. Through you, Mayor Milne, to Jim. Could you just clarify your statement? You said that with regard to plots on that land, but there is no burials on that 2.29 hectares. You're just using it as a storage area for staging topsoil for use of interments in the actual cemetery. Is that was my understanding?
Jim.
No, it's excess materials that have come out, and occasionally we'll use it to top dress areas that have sunken or something, but generally it's just excess. There are no plots out there. There's no marking for plotting. No plan at this point has been put forward for the development of those lands for the future. We currently have a very large lot to the east of there that is still in cemetery lands. The only area at the front by County Road 9 is 2 columbariums that have been installed there, and for future development in that area. But regarding burials these days, I believe we had 7 full burials last year. We had 1 in the columbarium. Will be many decades before the way the pattern is going for burials that we would ever exceed into our east lands right now.
Thank you, Jim. I have Martin and then Dina.
Yeah, thank you, Brian. Yeah, Jim, I do remember you saying that a while ago. I forget where we were talking, might have been at council, but you said that there won't be any issues for the use and that you'll probably end up putting another columbarium in, right? So if anybody out in the public is concerned that we're gonna run out or anything, like you just answered the question, it's gonna be years and years, especially with another columbarium. So that's good to know. Thanks.
Thanks, Martin. Jim, go ahead.
Just to add, the columbarium process we've developed currently is that once the columbarium is about half full, then we looked into tendering and getting the next one installed and ready in place. So again, it's been a number of years and we keep an eye on that. But again, a lot of cremation burials are happening and going into plots where extra interments can occur. So the real estate is well established for our needs for a long period of time in my mind.
Thanks, Jim. Dina.
Thank you. I'm not sure if you'd like me to provide a bit of background at this point as to why we are looking at this particular property, but
Sure, I think now would be as good as any. Yep, please.
Thank you. So a bit of background is the township has been planning for quite some time for the design and build of community facilities. And certainly that has progressed with the growth in the community that we've experienced. One of the biggest challenges that we've seen or in the past and even currently today is that acquiring land to suit those community developments close to the urban center with access to servicing is difficult. So when the ministry zoning orders were approved in 2022, there were additional parcels of land that were added in that would be appropriate for these types of developments, including the land here that surrounds the cemetery and fronts on Gray Road 9. And so with this development in place and this information, the township began looking for opportunities that may exist to acquire land for these community facilities. And as such, we reviewed the property behind the cemetery. And I think there might be a little misconception as to what land we're talking about. So it is actually land behind the cemetery that is not being used at all right now and is not plotted out. So when we reviewed that property with the clerk, the planner at the time, it was determined we would not need these lands. And in fact, we have almost half of the cemetery in front of those lands that is currently empty and available. And with the trend of burials, it was followed up with that we don't need those lands at this time. And there are other community needs that we need to put in place. So following that review, the township approached the developer that owns the MZO lands with a request for land exchange. And that developer actually was very accommodating. And as a result, we're looking to acquire several acres on the very west end of the MZO lands that front on Gray Road 9, approximately 16 acres the township will be looking to acquire. And with all that, that actually removes more land out of this development for the developer than they are retaining and would be getting in the land exchange. So this application is the first step in the process where the lands directly behind the cemetery would be exchanged for residential development on their lands. So the community facilities that we're planning to put here or looking to get some I guess, the study that we're going to do and what community facilities we're going to put there. Are community facilities that require access to servicing, and cemetery lands do not. So there is potential, even though we have decades of space in the remaining lands of the cemetery, there still is potential if we need it in the future to find some lands elsewhere within the township if that was needed, looking far into the future. So I just wanted to let this committee know that there is a report going forward to council that kind of details what we're looking at as far as exchanging the lands and building these community facilities that is now being facilitated through the MZO lands. That information will be available and presented to council on March 6th.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Dina. And I would add that if anyone has taken the time to read the justification report that's available online, it does outline very clearly and extensively just exactly what Dina was talking about there. Barbara, I see your hands up. Go ahead.
Thank you. And through you, Mayor, now to Dina, probably, or perhaps Lindsay has an aerial view. I wondered if it might be helpful to show the property that the 2.29 hectares that is north of the cemetery, the actual cemetery lands, and if I don't even know if it's available, because we're talking in the application a swapping of land, a land swap. Could you elaborate on that for anyone who might be watching this, so that they have a clear picture of what is being proposed for this future community facility and why it's so important to have it on Grey Road 9 for ease of transportation and access by people? That was my thought, if that's possible, Your Worship.
Well, I can't do it, but I wouldn't be able to do it, but I'm sure Lindsay can.
Becky is
Or
saying
I
that
see
she's happy
Becky
to
has.
share her, yeah.
If Becky
So-
wants to share her, you guys do what she's asking.
Well, just so we're clear, Deputy Mayor, are you wanting to show the cemetery, like the land, like we have an aerial that shows the sections of the cemetery, so we can point out which ones haven't even been available for purchase yet?
Please.
If that's what you're wanting to see first.
Yes.
If at all possible, if you have the aerial shots available, I think it might be helpful for us as well to understand the lands that are being proposed to be swapped to the developer in favor of additional lands fronting on Grey Road 9. But I like your approach, Lindsay, also to understand just the amount of space that is available. I do have a couple of follow-up questions, but if this is at all possible, it would be very helpful.
So, Alicia, I believe you have the mapping up and I can speak to it.
Yeah, and through the chair, I was just gonna suggest if we do it in 2 stages, maybe we can address the cemetery first and then give Becky control and she can then discuss the proposal
Sure.
of the swap
Perfect.
work.
Perfect. Please.
So what Alicia's going to put on the screen, I know some people have called in, so they don't have the advantage of the screen unless they're also following along on the YouTube. But this is an aerial of the Maple Grove Cemetery.
Mhm.
So all the sections that are in color, A through K, are what I'm going to call active. The ones closer to the road are the much older sections, which are mostly sold and mostly occupied. Sections M, L, J, and K are still quite a bit left to be sold. There is lots of sales that have taken place in those sections that just aren't occupied yet, so lots of room left in those 4. And then to the east, sections P, R, and Q is what our Public Works Manager was referring to earlier, that those have all been planned, but none of that has been sold or occupied in any capacity. So there's all those 3 sections that is still available to
Okay.
the east of the current plots. Yep.
Barb?
I should have asked, given Lindsay a heads up, you just created a question for me. Of the JK, L, and M areas, it looks like a fairly large area. How many plots would have been assigned to those areas? Do you know that?
Oh,
Because they would have already been plotted.
yeah, so there's depending on the section, there's at least 7 or 8 rows, I'd say, in each section, and then each row, I'm trying to just do this off the top of my head, has, I would say, anywhere from 15 to 20 plots available. Jim, maybe jump in if I'm wrong, but I'm just doing this off the top of my head. But those would have been plotted as doubles. Now they can be sold as singles, which would create more. And then, as Jim was alluding to with the cremation burials, if you have a double plot, you can accommodate up to 4 cremations, and a single plot can have 3. So you can have a lot more density, I guess is the word I'd use. Not a great word, but yeah, so there's quite a bit of room in those sections. I don't know if Jim wants to jump in if I'm wrong on any of that.
Well, I don't want to jump in here too hard, but I mean, I'm not sure
yeah,
the relevance of
That's
those
great,
questions, but so
If
Go
if
ahead,
I may
Barb.
allow, if I just may clarify that my question was for perspective. We say that there's a lot, and Lindsay, sorry for the no notice on that, and you did a great job. It just gives you a better picture of just the volume of space available for the individual space available. Thank you for your indulgence.
No, all good. Okay. So you're finished there then, Lindsay?
Yeah, unless there's any other questions about future capacity or anything like that.
Okay. Well, let's go to the next picture, Lindsay, or Alicia, and ask Becky to speak to the proposal. Is that where we're headed? Yep. Okay.
Thanks, everyone. So this is Becky Hillier here from Grey County. Can everyone who's on the call see my screen? Okay, so I'm just looking, for those who can't see the screen, we're just looking at the county's internal GIS system, which shows a topographical view of the property. And so what Lindsay has just explained there is that the front portion of the cemetery property fronting on Grey Road 9, which is actively used and planned for the cemetery purposes, is quite different than the land that's currently subject to our current applications, which is at the northern portion of that cemetery property. And it's entirely vacant at this time. And so that's the land that we're discussing today as part of this proposal. If I turn on Schedule A of the county's official plan, we see that the mapping on the cemetery property is partially red, which signifies that part of the cemetery property is within that primary settlement area of Dundalk, and it's partially white, which signifies that half of it is within the rural area. And so we see that this property currently straddles that settlement area of Dundalk. And so this creates a bit of limitations with the potential use of that future portion of the property, if it is to be used for anything other than that cemetery use, because within that rural designation, the county's official plan, as well as the Southgate official plan, does not permit the extension of municipal services. It doesn't permit that kind of higher density type of development that we would tend to be looking for a new residential subdivision or development of that nature. And so the municipality at this time, or sorry, the township at this time, is looking to bring this small area in white and green here, showing a little bit of hazard, into that settlement area of Dundalk, so that we can consider development on this portion of the property that is sort of in keeping with the surrounding approved development. And so you see just north of the property here, this again outlined in red, this larger property. When we speak to the property that has been approved for through the minister's zoning order, that's the property that we're referring to here. And so if we imagine what this map was looking like before this MZO it extended the settlement area of Dundalk, all of this would have been rural at that point. But because of that minister zoning order, it's basically created kind of this donut hole of rural land inside of what is now a municipal settlement area. And so just kind of looking at this, there is quite a bit of planning merit in considering converting this portion of the cemetery property into that primary settlement area, just to kind of facilitate that more cohesive development opportunity. And, you know, my understanding is that the township is arranging for that land swap opportunity with the MZO land developer. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dina, but I believe that the lands that you had been referring to that the township would receive as a result of that land swap would be somewhere along here on Gray Road 9. Is that correct?
Yes, it would actually be that whole entire red area, other than a road that would go up straight, but right back to lot 228.
Okay.
So straight back to
okay.
the entire
Okay.
property. Yeah.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that's helpful. So yeah, that's sort of kind of the part of the intention of this development here, and just so kind of the public understands, is that while the township would be kind of giving up this land to kind of benefit the developer here, they would be receiving this other land for public use in future. And I understand that the township's looking to develop a bit of a service hub there that would kind of benefit the community. So anyway, I just wanted to speak a little bit to that. So the county portion of the official plan amendment is really concerned with just this tiny little rectangle here. That's the same with the township official plan. And then the zoning portion would be this kind of larger rectangle here. And the zoning, from my understanding, would essentially be just matching the existing MZO zoning that has been applied to this land and has been approved by the province at this time. So that's kind of what we are looking at from the kind of Planning Act perspective.
Excellent. Thank you, Becky. Monica, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just through you to Becky. Just one question, just a quick clarification question. And then my question was, this might be actually for Dina. You mentioned it goes for the exchange of land would go to lot 228. Did you mean 229 or 228? Like it goes all the way to the back?
I meant 228. It goes straight from Grade Road 9 all the way back. So it's about 16 acres, that whole kind of side. Plus the EP lands we would retain anyway. We would get given to us anyway at the end of that. So it would be straight following the lot line of that residential unit. It would go straight up to lot 228 and across that whole area, which is approximately 16 acres.
Perfect. Thank you for that clarification. And just the actual question I have, Chair, if I could just follow up.
Go ahead.
Thank you. So just with regards, if we look at impact assessment, it's really great to get that visual. So if we were to see if there would be any impact on the cemetery that is being used, if we were to look at the visual impact, access, and just the preservation of peace and dignity for the rest of the area. Just wondering if you could, for the benefit of the community, understanding how that will be preserved.
Yeah, I can maybe speak to that a little bit,
please.
Monica. Yeah,
Yep.
so I think so one thing to note, and so while the zoning here would reflect the zone of the MZO land, it's not kind of the final be all and end all for this property. There's still a lot of planning work that will need to be done before any development on this MZO approved land can move forward. And so one of the applications that will be triggered in future is a draft plan of subdivision application, which will have to be brought forward by the developer and will have to go through approval through Grey County in conjunction with the township as well. And so through that process, we can certainly consider different types of things to make sure that we buffer that land use. So some of that might be putting in a decorative fence or a hedge, or perhaps both of those things. We could consider having setbacks for building lines here. So, making sure that the houses aren't directly overlooking the cemetery and things of that nature. So there's certainly opportunities to look at that buffering there. And I agree that I think it would be a best practice to look at doing something like that. In terms of kind of access to the MZO lands, it would not go through the cemetery at all. There is a point of access over here, I believe, on Ida Street. And then I think there would probably be one coming from Gray Road 9 here. So we'd probably have a bit of a road system, something like this. But there would not be road access taken through the cemetery to access that property.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, any further questions from council? I can't see everybody who's sharing their.
Barbara.
Go ahead, Barb.
Thank you. And thank you, Becky, because one of my questions was about the next stage if development was to occur. Some of the concerns that were expressed in the letter that has been posted online from the resident was about respectful dignity and setbacks from the cemetery. So that's all going to come as part of another process. And that's actually very reassuring. So thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I think we do have the opportunity to deal with some of those comments through that draft plan of subdivision approval. And I think just to speak to some of the other comments as well that have been submitted from, for example, through the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, they had indicated that they would like to see an archaeological assessment on that northern portion of the property. And just for everyone's reference, that is a standard request for new subdivision developments. And so that's something we would be looking at for the entirety of the site. And so potentially, through any approved zoning that comes out of this application, we could look at adding, say, a holding provision to add that study through a future subdivision review, for example.
Thank you, Becky. Jim, I see your hands up. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. I just want to point out that to the west of the cemetery, currently there is a house that is fairly close to the lot line. So with no mitigation really in place, there are some trees dotted out through, but we've never had any concerns from the residents in that area previously. So, but I totally understand and realize some mitigation measures for development would be probably incorporated.
Thank you, Jim. Any more questions from council? There'll be another opportunity to a little bit later here. Okay, not seeing any. I think I can forego the part where we ask for representation on the application because
Mayor Milne.
Oh, sorry. There, I see Joan's hand. Go ahead, Joan, please.
Thank you, Lindsay. Through the chair. Thanks, Becky. That was my question about the archaeological assessment, if that have started or it would be completed. So I'm glad that you touch base on that, so we can keep up to date with what is going on with the archaeological assessment. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Joan. Of course, absolutely. Okay, I can't see the rest of councils. Oh, here we are.
Sorry, let me stop sharing there.
No, that's good. It's been very helpful. All right. Now is the public's turn. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of this application? Not hearing any. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to this application? I can't see other folk. I can see council and staff. Barb?
Mayor Milne, there was a question posted in the chat room. Will there be an opportunity for the public to speak or ask questions, whether or not they're opposed or in favor?
Well, that's where we're at right now. So if somebody has something to say, now would be the time.
I think
There-
Patty has unmuted.
Well, I don't know Patty, but Patty, if you're there, if you'd like to ask your question, by all means.
So I was just asking what the land was like that you're getting in the swap. Will it be suitable if the cemetery requires that space for burials, or is it not suitable?
Okay. I'll direct that question to Dina. Do you want to speak to that one? At least the first piece there.
I would probably ask more of a planner if it's suitable for cemetery usage, but the intention is not to use it for cemetery lands.
Right. Okay. Any other questions from the public? Okay, not hearing any for now. Are there any further questions or discussion from council? Barb?
Through you to Dina or the planner or Becky, I'm not really sure, but in the land that is being acquired, it would also have to go through potentially environmental impact study to determine whether or not there's any contamination anywhere within that proximity due to past practices, if there was any on there. I believe, because I'm not really sure exactly where the 16 acres is, I'm not sure if there is a property that used to have tractors and storage containers, but I don't believe it exists anymore.
Becky, do you want to speak to that, please?
Yeah, thanks for that question. So I have not personally done sort of a detailed review at this stage of that portion of the property in terms of what the township would be receiving. But my assumption is that yes, it would have to go through that kind of detailed planning review phase at a future stage once that development plan is better established in terms of what the township would like to see there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Becky. And I see Christine has asked a question. Has the BAO been consulted? And that is the Bereavement Association of Ontario. Dina, please.
No, the BAO hasn't been consulted, and correct me if I'm wrong, Lindsay, this part behind the cemetery is not has not been brought into cemetery usage whatsoever, and so we would not have to consult with the BAO. It's not part of the cemetery at this point.
True. Yes, that's right, Dina. As we stated before, there's those other sections to the east of the current plots that are part of the cemetery and are planned for future expansion. And that's all been approved through previous approvals through the Bereavement Authority, but this section had never been included in that. So there's no reason to consult with the BAO for these lands in particular.
Thank you, Lindsay. Thank you, Becky. Thank you, Dina. Monica, I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. And just for you to the CAO, and thank you everyone for all the insight and inputs with regards to the answering of these questions. One question that I thought to ask that for minds that may be wondering, in terms of this specific plots being, or I should say lands being chosen in terms of alternative exploration, Pretty much, how did these lands, just very plainly, how did these get chosen in terms of if there was any possibility of exploring alternative development sites or plans that minimize the impact on the cemetery, which we have now through the discussion have found that, from my point of view at least, that the impact on the cemetery looks to be minimal. And all the projected plans that would go into place to keep all these things in mind, what would be the rationale, if someone were to ask, why these particular lines were selected for the land swap or land of exchange?
Dina, please.
Certainly, through you. These lands were chosen because of the zoning that is around them, and to Becky's point, to kind of clean up that area and make it, it makes sense to use those lands for the residential that the developer would be losing by swapping the lands on Gray Road 9. The reason we liked this area is because there is no large pieces of land for community development near the urban area that we would be able to use to bring forward some of the amenities that the township has been looking towards building. And with the further development with the Eco Parkway extension to Highway 10 and a potential bypass, and being on the west end of the community, it is helpful for access from all of the different demographics of our community. The Mennonite community can reach this property, as well as all of the residents within Dundalk, and Southgate would be able to easily reach this potential property for development of community services. So it is a really good area, and just for the fact of having a big piece of property to be able to develop, there really isn't one that's available that would work for the township and the residents.
So what it sounds like to me is there's been a lot of thought put into this and a lot of understanding for the justification of utilization of the land, and that there's only so much that can be used in terms of what is required for our projected plans that is in line with our strategic plan. So I think that, from my understanding, taking into consideration the roadways, the utilization, the land use, projected, like everything that that would be needed to have these amenities in place for where we're going. It sounds like a lot of thoughtfulness has been put into that. And so I just wanted, to have that better understanding for any who would need that to be further highlighted. So thank you for answering that, Dina.
Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, and thank you, Dina. Okay. Last call for questions before we move on to the next file. Alrighty. Thank you, everyone. The second zoning bylaw amendment is file number C1-24, Edward and Mary Atchison. The purpose of the application is to recognize a minimum lot area of 12 hectares for the retained parcel as a condition of consent application B1-22, while the current zoning requires minimum lot area of 40 hectares. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is to implement a condition of consent for application B1-22. The location of the subject lands are Concession 3, Southwest Toronto-Sydenham Road, Lot 211 to 213, Geographic Township of Proton, Township of Southgate, also known as 752618 Southgate Side Road 75. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act? Where did she go? Oh, there she is. There you are.
Yes, Mayor Milne, proper notice was given in accordance with the act. The sign was posted and notice was sent out.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'll now ask our planning consultant, Bill White, to review correspondence received from commenting agencies. Bill.
Mayor Milne, I believe Victoria is going to do those comments.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Victoria, there you
We're
go. Sorry.
switching it up today. Sorry, guys.
Right on. That's good. Go ahead, Victoria.
Good afternoon, Council. So just to give a quick summary of comments for C124, Historic, Saugeen Métis had no concerns. Grey County staff, no concerns. And Southgate Public Works Department suggested a new entrance if required, but no further concerns. And lastly, Saugeen Valley Conservation Authority had no concerns. And it demonstrates consistency with hazard policies in the PPS, Grey County, OP, and local planning policies.
Very good. Were there any written comments received by members of the public or from the members of the public?
Not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, thank you, Victoria. Lindsay, were you aware of any that came in? Or Alicia, do you? No? Okay.
I don't believe so. I'm looking to Alicia, but I didn't receive any, so I'm thinking no.
All right, we'll say no.
Yes,
there
I
any-
can confirm that no public comments came in.
All right, good. Are there any questions or discussion from council at this time? Martin.
Thank you, Brian. On the application, the point 12 talks about environment constraints, and I'm taking that as there's it said something about a manure storage facility. Is that a really big deal for this? Like, what does the constraint part of it mean? I think that was explained to me once, but I've totally forgotten what it meant. It doesn't really do anything to the severed land, right?
Who wants to have a run at that? Bill, Victoria, Bill?
Yeah, Bill, if you want to take that one.
Bill gets the manure pile. Perfect. You're muted, Bill. You're muted. There we go.
For that.
Oh,
I actually hit that button, but I must have missed.
that's all right. It's only cost you $10 so far.
$10, okay. All right. So pardon me on this one. I believe this is dealing with existing development. So the lands aren't essentially changing, and in fact, there's a rail land running through it. So I think that constraint relates to whatever agricultural use is on the property, as if there were one. And I think that it could be. I think they've done a minimum distance calculation. There must be some farm use on the property, manure storage or such that they've calculated that for. So I think that's the constraint they're referring to.
Okay.
Thanks, Bill. Thank you, Martin. Any other questions from council? Barbara.
Thank you, Mayor Milne. And through you, I was just quickly doing some math. In this application, it appears that the 12 acre or hectares is about 30 acres, if I did the math right. And there is a natural severance because the rail trail travels through the property. Kind of going the confirmation through my head, sorry. The total parcel before severance is about 174 acres, therefore approximately 69 hectares. The farm that would be that would remain would still be greater than 135 acres. So it's still a very good sized farm, correct?
Bill?
I don't have any. I don't see that as more than 100 acres. I haven't caught up on the math with you just there yet, but I don't have an issue with the size of the parcel that's there. Honestly, believe it is naturally severed, but so it's kind of been existing like that forever, for a long time. So yeah, I don't have an issue with the size of the parcel that results.
Terrific. Thank you.
We'll do our technical report later for council when we bring the bylaw, but at this point, I don't see a technical issue with it.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Barb. Thanks, Barb. Any other questions from council? Okay, seeing none. Where am I here? I'll now ask if the applicant or agent is present. Please identify yourself by stating your name for the record if you'd like. And would you like to make any representation on your application? Okay, not hearing anybody. Is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of this application? And also, is there anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to this application? Okay, are there any further questions or discussion from council? All right, thank you very much. Seeing no further questions, we'll move on to the next third and final file. The third zoning bylaw amendment is file number C2-24, JFAB Manufacturing Incorporated. The purpose of the application is to amend the zoning bylaw for two reasons. To address a condition of consent application B8-23, dividing the subject lands into a severed farm parcel on the north part with 18.5 hectares lot area and a retained farm parcel on the south part with 20 hectares lot area when current zoning requires 40 hectares lot area. The second is a proposal on the future 18.5 hectare severed farm parcel on the north part of the subject lands to permit an on-farm diversified use, including woodworking, metalworking, and fabricating, manufacture of concrete and related supplies, and the like. The proposed use, including office, lunchroom, and power room, would occupy up to 750 square meters of floor area of a proposed structure with outside storage not to exceed 500 square meters. The effect of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment would be to establish new zoning on the entire subject property, permitting minimum lot area of 18.5 hectares and allow an agricultural exception zone on part of the north farm lot, permitting an on-farm diversified use. The location of the subject lands are concession 4, part lot 38, geographic township of Broughton, township of Southgate, also known as 311343 Grey Road 8. May I please have confirmation from the clerk that proper notice was given in accordance with the Planning Act? Lindsay.
Yeah, through you, Mayor Milne, proper notice was given in accordance with the act. The notices were sent out and the sign was posted on the property.
Most excellent. Thank you, Lindsay. I'll now ask Bill or Victoria. Victoria?
Yeah.
All right. I'll now ask our planning consultant, or our planner, sorry, Victoria, to review correspondence received from commenting agencies. Victoria, please.
Thank you, Mary Milne. Okay, so Historic Saugeen Métis had no concerns. Bear with me on some of the Grey County staff comments here. So county planning staff asked for a reduction in the proposed area. The proposed area right now is 750 square meters. They're asking for a reduction to 400 square meters to meet the county OP on farm diversified use, to meet the 2% of the total size of the property. County ecology staff asked that the applicant contact the Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks. The property is also considered an intake protection zone and a significant groundwater recharge area, but they've waived the EIS at this point. It also contains an area that are subject to the Source Water Protection Act. So risk management official of drinking water source protection should be tagged for comments from Grace Oppel. To ensure compliance with the endangered and threatened species policy in the PPS, they're asking that tree cutting would be limited outside bird nesting seasons between April 1st and August 31st. As well, hay harvesting should not occur after July 15th. And County Transportation Services stated that no road widening is necessary if site plan approval is required, and 0.3 meter reserve shall be conveyed to Grey County along the frontage of County Road, and a daylight triangle of 15.24 meters be conveyed to Grey County at the intersection of Grey Road 8 and Southgate Road 8. County planning staff recommend that the application should be deferred until such time that the proposed shop can meet the 400 square meter shop requirement, reduction from 750 square meters, and address county ecology staff comments as well, and an entrance permit be applied for if not already, and maintain a building setback of 75 feet from the county right-of-way. Next, Enbridge County or Enbridge Gas, no comments or concerns, but can be addressed in the future if needed. And Public Works Department, 3 meter road widening required on Southgate Road 8 and subject to Grey County entrance requirements.
Thank you, Victoria. Were there any written comments received from the public that you're aware of?
Not that I'm aware of, nope.
Alicia, did you have any?
No, none received.
Okay, thank you very much. Questions or discussion from council? Are there any? Barb.
Thank you, through you. I guess I just want to clarify that the original farm parcel would have been 39 hectares based on the application to sever 18 with a 20 retained parcel. The original farm parcel has an existing on-farm diversified use. And what is the minimum hectares in the agricultural area for permission to have an on-farm diversified use? What would be normally? Is it 20 or 40?
Victoria?
Through you, Mayor Millen, I believe it's 40 hectares, but correct me if I'm wrong.
If I may, Mayor Millen?
Yep, go ahead.
So if in that case, there's already an exception made for that permission to have an on-farm diversified use on it, I mean, it was just slightly less than 40 hectares. Now we're getting into where the properties are proposing to sever off a portion of their lands, the existing on-farm diversified use, for the sole purpose of having another on-farm diversified use and creating an industrial park. And this, therefore, sets up an opening for more on-farm properties that have on-farm diversified use that wish to expand but cannot, is kind of where I'm going with this, and looking to find out how does that fit within our zoning and official plans, because this could, again, open up more opportunities for other farm parcels to be looking to sever off a portion of their 40 hectares and retain their on-farm diversified use. Thank you.
So
Bill?
if I may comment.
Go ahead, Victoria. Yep.
Through you, Mayor Millen, there is direction in the Grey County OP that gives for rural designation. So provides like coverage for on-farm diversified use, like maximum size. And your property size is either 20 hectares or greater, gives a 2% of the total size of the property with a maximum of 8,000 square feet. And then they also have less than 20 hectares, which this would fall under, which is also 2% of the property size, but then 2,000 square meters. So I don't know if that helps answer your question at all.
Thank you. And just to clarify a little bit in there, this designation is rural, not ag.
Thank you.
Because it makes a difference.
Sure does. Thank you very much for stating that, Brian.
Well,
that was going to be my next question.
It was an observation on my part. I am not the consultant here or the expert by any stretch. Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, if I may, just to go add to Victoria's comments. Obviously, we still have to do our technical report on this, and so the issues raised as far as what impact on the community this will have on that size of lot. Now, granted, it's rural, so it is a different perspective, but we'll address that in our upcoming technical report, including the comments from the county that the size of it be reduced. And I'm sure we'll hear from the applicant's agent as well before that to try and rectify anything, so it's cohesive when it's presented back to council.
Thank you, Bill. Monica, you have your hand up. Go ahead, please.
Yes, just through you, Mayor, and to that point, through you to Bill, just particularly on that, I have the same sentiments as the mayor in terms of not being an expert and just kind of learning as fast as I can about all these things. So when we take a look at on-farm diversified use, so that's a mouthful, so OFDU, essentially, have you found that particularly when it comes to metalworks in a rural setting, had there been major concerns that we should have in regards to, well, environmental concerns specifically that may be associated with having metalworks in a rural setting this way?
Bill?
Yeah, I'm not aware now I haven't been involved with Southgate as long as most of you, but I'm not aware that these types of OFDUs tend to create issues from a noise and perspective. They are still subject to the D4 environmental guidelines that are out there. So if there are issues with noise, that kind of thing, especially metalworking, sometimes we have that as relief. We also sign site plan agreements with them, and I've seen in a number of those where there's been provisions for buffering and screening, but also operational controls on when doors are open and that sort of thing to try and mitigate the impact. So my main concern with these is they're supposed to be accessory to agriculture. So agriculture is, even in rural, in my opinion, they should be sort of accessory to the agricultural use. And so long as that's continuing, I generally think these, especially with this community, seem to function fine. But I reserve to others who've been around more to whether they've created a cumulative impact, given I've seen probably a dozen of them, and I've only been around for a few months. So it seems to be very prominent, but I am not aware of any serious concerns, frankly.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Monica. Martin, go ahead.
Thank you, Brian. Jumping on what Bill was saying about the farm and what have you, I'm looking at a map right now. There's 3 of them, and it's 18.82. That's the parcel that's to be severed. It has the diagram of the shop. And, you know, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Because when you look at the map, 2/3 of that 18 hectares is wetland. So there's only like 1/3 of that property that is actually farmable. So which one's supporting which, I guess? And that's not really any of our business, but it is supposed to be helping the agricultural operation, not the other way around. So that's just something I just thought of looking at the map. So just a comment, I guess.
Thanks, Martin. Bill, did you want to
I
respond?
just wanted to make sure if it wanted to check if it was actually wetland or environmentally protected. I believe it is protected land, but I'm not sure it's a wetland. I would want to verify that. But and so I think if it's not wetland and it's protected land, often protected lands, as you know, can have agriculture on them. You just can't have buildings in there. So I don't have the looking at the topo there. I'm not sure it's a wetland, but it doesn't look necessarily like it's farmed either. It may have some other use on there, but yeah, it's a good point. We'll have to look at that in preparing our report.
Yeah, it could be that old chestnut. Is it wetland or is
It
it
is
wet
EP.
or is it wet land?
Yeah. So
sorry, Victoria, did you said it's EP land?
EP land, yeah.
Okay. Martin,
yeah,
Bill, go ahead.
So technically they can farm in that, but when looking at the topo, it doesn't necessarily look to me like it is farmed, but I think we'll need to address that issue too as we move forward, exactly what's going on and whether we really can consider this to be accessory
right
to the agriculture, but and give some idea on impacts and concerns that could be coming as a result of that.
Yep, good point. Martin, go ahead.
Well, as I said, it only caught my eye now because of the aerial shot, but the one map, it actually says GRCA wetland on it. So that's why I brought it up. So
yeah,
something, Bill, to look at, that would be fantastic.
Yep,
thank
you.
Good.
And sorry, Mr. Chair, not to prolong it, but I guess we also have to remember rural versus agriculture, or I always say rural versus prime ag, so we get a little bit of a different look at it, that's all, with a rural.
Right. Okay, any further questions from council at this point? Okay, I'll ask Barb, go ahead.
just a comment to Bill's point, agriculture doesn't necessarily mean growing corn or soybean. It could be grazing livestock.
Yep. Just depends on your level of how much you want to punish yourself, I guess. Okay, moving along. I'll now ask the applicant or agent, if they're present, to please identify yourself by stating your name for the record. And would you like to make any representation on your application? Okay, not hearing anyone. Is anyone present who would like to make a submission in support of this application? And was there anyone present who would like to make a submission in opposition to this application? Okay, not hearing anyone. Final call for questions or discussion from council. Okay, not hearing any. I will declare this public portion of the meeting adjourned at 2:05. Thank you, everyone, for your